Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this special edition, Council of Miniature Painters edition of Monster Den Minis. Boy, do we have a great guest for you tonight. We have Reaper Wolf from Reaper Miniatures is here to talk about Dungeon Dwellers. And that is the RPG game from Reaper Miniatures. And really looking forward to this conversation. Also might talk a little bit about ReaperCon at the very end. I'm really looking forward to ReaperCon. And of course we're going to have our question of the day. So I will save my pre-stream rant for our introductions here as we talk about the council. Otis is here. But he is upstairs waiting for his special treat, but he'll be down here. Well, he never misses a stream. Well, unless it's thundering and lightning outside. Speak of the devil, there he is. Come on, Otis. Oh, you're waiting for your treat. Okay. Anyway, so Otis is here, and we've got Reaper Wolf here, and we've got the rest of the council will be filtering in, I'm sure. So far, we have Black Skull and Painterly Giddard here. So hobby along with us and get your questions ready for Reaper Wolf. And ask all your questions. Jet, how you doing? Chaotic Painting, welcome again, guys. We're gonna jump straight over to the council and get going right away tonight. So grab a brush of miniature and some paints and hobby along as you're listening to the Council of Miniature Painters here in the Monster Den. All right, I gotta adjust my volume. It's a little loud. There we go. Okay. All right, a little loud for me, not for stream. So we are here in the council. Welcome in, everybody. And there's Otis. And I hope you're all having a great weekend. Hope you all had maybe got some hobbying done this weekend. I know it was a little rainy here, so got some hobbying done myself. But we're here in the Council of Miniature Painters for our third Sunday of the month, and we're talking to Reaper Wolf. Welcome in, Joseph. How you doing?
Having an amazing night. How are you?
We're doing great. The council is something that my viewers really look forward to, and we've had some awesome guests, and that continues having you here. And we're really looking forward to our conversation tonight. So, as far as the council goes, we've got Mr. Wapple is here in audio, struggling with the video, but that's okay. We all struggle with the video sometimes. And we got Painterly Git and Black Skull, and I'm sure some other people will filter in as we go. So, we're gonna start out tonight with the way we always start out. We're gonna talk about what we're working on. Hobby wise or whatever. If you haven't had a lot of time to hobby, what has been keeping you busy in the last few weeks or since our last council. So we're gonna kick it off with our special guest, Reaper Wolf. Joseph, what have you been hobbying or doing lately?
I've been working on the Game Masters vault, finishing up the magic section, cleaning up a bunch of descriptions, and sitting there with a calculator, figuring out the gold piece value of, rings of dowsing and stuff. But I am working on something kind of fun for ReaperCon. One of the adventures features a little piece of terrain that was going to guarantee to give players nightmare in a very kind of sort of Victor Frankenstein kind of way.
Oh no! Wow, that sounds intriguing.
We're gonna get phone calls. We're gonna get phone calls.
You just my kid was playing your game, and now you won't go to sleep.
And I'll go, mission accomplished.
There you go. Wow. I'm afraid for you're doing this in your sessions at ReaperCon?
Saturday morning, okay. the event that we're going to stream.
All right, Saturday morning, the streamed event. All right, that's gonna be interesting. Wow. That's, the creativity around the world. We're going to be talking about this obviously, but the creativity around the world. You set up the world that you can build, and then it's just whatever the imagination is, right? At that point, it's that's a perfect example of some of the stuff that you can do. All right. Oh, hey, James got his camera working. Look at that.
No, actually not.
No?
It's choosing. It's choosing the one that is
it's
actually the camera.
It's your
my
palette
palette
cam.
camera.
It is your palette.
This is why I never use Discord.
This is what James looks like deconstructed. Just a bunch of oil paints.
Oh,
Yeah,
That's
which
fun.
I can't get it to do nothing else.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. So, what have you been working on, James? What's been on your?
Go to somebody else.
I'll go to somebody else? Okay.
Actually.
All right, we'll go over to Painterly Git. What are you working on?
I've been working on the project for Zambies. I had it all together. I had tried to use some nail polish, UV nail polish, to do some water effects, and unfortunately, it leaches out this sticky residue. Right? It's supposed to help hold. It's supposed to help hold color on nail polish when it's applied thinly. Well, when you put it on thick, it strips paint, and then it debonds itself from everything. So I had to take this apart. I had to take all the paint off the base, strip it, the base inside the pipe here too. So today on my stream, I was putting it back together and talking about hobby failures and how sometimes they're not always bad, right? And it's kind of good to share that stuff because there are so many people who just put out all the good stuff in their hobby, all their best work and everything. So it kind of sometimes it hurts other people's motivation. So I decided to post some of my my losses and show that you can kind of work through them. That is what I've been working on the last week or so.
Yeah. That's it. It's I think it's as important to show, and that's one thing when I started streaming, I said I was going to show the good and the bad. I think it's important. I think it's important just to see the good and the bad when it comes to the mistakes that can be made, but then you have the successes that are just that are sweet too, where you get something right accidentally or on purpose. There's nothing wrong with that. We all make mistakes, and Bob Ross always told us that happy little accident. So that's great. Well, awesome, Git. Thank you so much. We're gonna jump over to Black's Quantum River. He's actually just joined us here. Thank you so much for that raid, Quantum. Bringing everybody over. Bench Guy is here.
No problem.
Jet is here. Night Flyer, Notorious. Thank you all for joining us here. So let's jump over to Black Skull next. What are you working on, Black Skull?
Just got done with the Gnome King bust for ReaperCon. I had a last minute kind of problem where I wasn't sure whether to plinth or not to plinth. And I was taking some final pictures, and I realized the big fat round foxbite lid that goes on the holder that I use to secure the Gnome King. The little metal thing on the bottom is ruined and it's got some paint on it. So I figured I got two more. I'll sacrifice it. So I'm using that as the base, and it's got a nice wood rim on the end of it. So that'll be really good. I picked my other pieces that I'm going to send. I'm going to do two in the painter division. I'm going to do the John Wick chibi for the little chibi manufacturer piece. And I was reading the rules today, and I realized that I can put some just display pieces in. So I brought back Hack and Slash's Big Bada Boom Soma Blaster, and I'm going to just do that for display. And and after that, I'm getting everything prepped for the stuff that I'm going to bring with me to ReaperCon to paint and to do. And I'm just about finished with another of the Marvel United minis. I'm doing arcade this time. I got a Dark Sword mini I started, but I don't think it's going to be ready for ReaperCon, and I'm not going to rush it. But that's where I'm at.
Right. God, I saw your king bust on Instagram. It absolutely looks fantastic. Lots of creative effort going in there. Looking forward to seeing that in person too. All right, so let's James. Oh, James got his camera working. Look at that.
Yeah, all this stuff is working. I don't know what was going on. It was kind of important because this is an easier way of showing some of the stuff that went on since we missed a month here. This was actually a 4-part series on this guy right here. This is a massive guy from Conquest Miniatures. And actually, I found out he just won the Colors of Conquest contest for July, apparently. I guess I didn't know that, but that just happened. We had him in the display case at the Conquest booth over there. This was an experiment with the water washable oils, which are very pointless, just as kind of like I thought before I started the series, but it kind of proved it. This was the craziest project, though. Remember I was painting some of these Zygamors before... it was before Gen Con, obviously. Well, this was another multi-part series painting all of these crazy things from Archvillain, and the last thing was a 2-part series on the base. So actually making that display base, because for Gen Con you have to have some kind of a display base for your units. And well, we decided to print up as many mushrooms and trees and other things as I could, and then create some kind of a little plinth for these ladies, I guess. We just call them the Truffleites because that's kind of what they are. Now, at Gen Con, I was doing the demos in the Badger booth, and let's see if we can get to some of the airbrush scenes here. Let's see, I think there we go. So this was what I was doing. I think I did 4 of these in the Badger booth. What I decided to do is chop them up into 4 5x7s, which we're going to actually fit on camera on stream so that we could do something like this. And we did 4 we call it the Thursday challenge now, where I do 4 spacescapes in one stream. And here's the 4 spacescapes that we did. And now I actually did another one, this last Thursday. So here's some of them right here. We took another one of the paintings, chopped it up, and then created, let me zoom out here. So we did 4 more spacescapes. There we go. Okay, it doesn't want to obey that. Then there was these guys. I don't know if you've seen some of these. Battlestar Galactica. These are 3 files on Thingiverse. Hundreds of them. Because there's also Babylon 5. And we've already done 3 of these. This last Monday, we did this right here. And none of these panels exist. That was all painted on stream. We do these on our Monday streams. Then there was this. This is another multi-part series here. You can see we've got some water effects there, but we also have reflections in the water. So this was a series about doing moonlight, tattoos, water effects, and then this. Interesting about this is I experimented with this tape. This company, it sells the UV resin, it sells the curing device, and it sells this tape that you can use for water effects. So that was something I experimented with for the first time on this lady here. That was pretty wild. Now I think I want to get to it here. Where's my, is this my trees here? There they are. So remember all the FDM support trees I've been making over the last months? Well, this was the first chance I had to do foliage on them. I spent about 4 weeks compiling all of these different supplies, and we did 5 very different trees, including, look at this, an orange tree. So the hobbits are very happy because now they got fruit trees. That was something I'd never done before, and all this stuff was just basically on Amazon for the most part. I've kind of reprised my thing where you use the reindeer moss, and then now we've added more leaves. You can see this is our flowering tree right here, and then this was I'm using this for my Dark Queen Galadriel army, so basically Lothlorien in the depths of winter. That was super fun. And here again, some more of our trees. I had a blast doing those guys. So actually here, this was a fun thing where I was using the AI to try and figure, okay, what would this thing look like with tattoos, with moonlight, and with the reflection? So this is one of the graphics that I created for that episode, or multi-episodes actually. We'll add more later on, but I want other folks to have a chance to do their thing.
Wow,
That's some of the stuff that got done.
Just some of the stuff. You know, you get more stuff done in a month than I get done in a year, Jay. I swear, you clone yourself. I think.
It's not a good idea because each clone is more stupid than the original, so that would be very bad.
Oh man, but yeah, you amaze me with the amount of stuff you're able to accomplish. So it's something to look forward to, maybe in retirement, to even get half as much you get done in that amount of time. And then we had Blades just join us. Blades, you want to jump in with what you've been working on?
Hello, everybody. Yeah.
Oh, forgot
So I've been
Quantum.
working on my pile of shame or pile of opportunity again. Let's see. Oh, I just painted the Freddy Krueger Epic Duck last night, so that was a lot of fun. Last Sunday, I helped to run the paint and take at the local gaming store across the street. So we didn't have a good turnout that day, though. I think because the weather was good, people were at the beach, so we only had a couple people show up, but that's okay. Yeah, I think for the October one, we're going to be painting like scary ducks from Epic Duck, so I think that's going to be like a sellout thing. I mean,
Oh,
not
that
we
sounds
charge
like
people
fun,
for it, but-
like Halloween ducks. If
Yeah.
everybody's not aware, Epic Ducks does all these 3D prints of different rubber ducks that are all these different themes, like Star Wars and Halloween. Everyone is a rubber duck, and it's just absolutely awesome. And you can have a theme for just about any time of the year for that. So,
Yeah, there's so much fun to paint. So much fun. So
Yeah.
I've also been on this orc kick. So I've been painting up orcs that I started to paint 9 years ago at the beginning of my journey. So that's been kind of fun to see how far I've come along in 9 years.
you know, that's that's good. You know, you paint something, and I can go back through Instagram and look where I started, and as you improve, you can see really how far you've come. You have
exactly. It's
definitely have.
fun. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So yeah,
right.
nothing specific, just a little bit here and there.
And I almost missed Quantum. Quantum just got out of Quantum's stream before having to head over here. So what were you working on tonight, Quantum?
I was working on kind of a nostalgic mini. More than a decade ago, I think around 2012, 2013, I had picked up a mini from Reaper Miniatures, one of their Bones line, because they had just started their first Kickstarter. So I picked up a dwarf miniature in Bones to see what it was like. And at the time, I started painting it, and that was just when I was starting into miniature painting, and I was overwhelmed by it. And I set it aside, and I didn't touch it for a decade. And so recently I went and cleaned it up and started painting again, and that's what I'm doing on this stream. So this is essentially my first Reaper Mini that I'm painting, technically.
Yeah, the first one you got a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And Quantum was also doing some picture drawing. Quantum, your 2D drawing has like you were good when you started, and you're continuing to get better as you keep doing those drawings. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not just, I haven't been doing as much mini painting lately because I've been doing more digital drawing. And the only thing is, I am getting better. I can see it if you go back through my Discord history. But the one thing I really want to do is get faster.
Yeah, I wish we could all miniature paint do all this gaming stuff a lot faster. That man, if we had more time in a day, hey, we just don't need to sleep, right? You know, if we could gain all that time, we would really be...
Sleep is overrated.
Yeah, overrated, right? Overrated. All right, excellent. Thank you so much. Oh, and then I'm working on this for ReaperCon. This is the Fathom Tyrant, which is basically the underwater beholder, and we added Scuba Steve here. That I keep calling him Scuba Steve, and that's just a 3D print that I found that worked perfectly with this model. Really looking forward to bringing this down to ReaperCon. And I also worked on Fallout Girl, which most everybody has seen, but we got the Fallout Girl from Loot Studios. The Fallout Chibi that I've been... Well, 2 Fallout-themed miniatures, all coming down to ReaperCon. Hopefully they'll make it down in one piece. I'm going to carry those on the plane. So, first con I'm going to on a plane, so I'm terrified about breaking my models on the way down. So anyway,
the betting windows are now open.
Yeah, the betting window, exactly. Got to bring the glue. Well, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of this Bones miniature breaking, but I am afraid of Scuba Steve here possibly breaking. But I'll just have to wrap him up really good. So, but yeah,
I'm traveling by car like I do for Adepticon, and I'm and even though I pack really well, I'm a little squeamish to make sure that the Gnome King stays intact. I mean, it's just on the base, and then it's, you know, the major part of the bus that attaches to the one branch. But yeah, I'm going to be terrified the entire time till I hand it over.
Yeah, exactly. We always are. So, all right. Well, we are ready to get into our main topic. For those of you, thank you everyone for joining us. We got a lot more viewers now. We're ready to get into our main topic with our special guest, Joseph, aka Reaper Wolf, is here, and we are going to be talking about Dungeon Dwellers, the RPG from Reaper Miniatures. That's it's been a Kickstarter, and it's a lot. It's out there in the wild quite a bit now, and people are grabbing it and catching on to it. I know I got a PDF of the manual and really have been enjoying reading through it. Just getting a lot of stuff. So welcome, Joseph. Thank you so much for coming on to the Council of Miniature Painters and talking to us about Dungeon Dwellers and maybe a little bit about ReaperCon too. Yeah. So why don't you introduce yourself and what your involvement is with Dungeon Dwellers? I mean, we all know, but maybe our viewers don't know. And let's just start at the basics of what in your background. That would be a great place to start.
Well, I am Reaper's head writer and game designer, working on Dungeon Dwellers. That is our primary focus right now in terms of getting some stuff out there that doesn't involve little toys, although Dungeon Dwellers does make extensive use of the toys. But as far as my background goes, I went to school for a really, really long time. And I have a degree in biology and secondary emphasis in Spanish and a lot of humanities. And I just kind of sort of fell into the industry. I never considered ever writing for like TSR or whoever. But I just kind of sort of made some friends. They opened some doors, gave me some opportunities. And, flash forward a few decades and I've got a few books in print.
Yeah, biology to now do you use any of your biology in the creation of your game?
Oh, by the way, excuse me. I have to say that I have to say in the best possible way, you just dated yourself because you mentioned the word TSR. I love that.
I know, right? Well, I want to, punch at the right height. Got to go for the old school guys and the new school guys. But no, that's where I got my start, man. I cut my teeth on old school gaming, and I've kind of kept kind of contemporary. I own a lot of the new stuff too. But it's a neat little journey. And as far as using the biology stuff, it's interdisciplinary, so you use a lot of it. When I build a lot of my dungeons, I think about kind of how things are put together. I mean, I'm writing about dragons, right? I mean, They don't make a lot of sense. They don't have to, right? But when you build dungeons, it's thinking about structures and how things kind of sort of flow and what things make sense and stuff is always kind of cool. And I always sneak in a lot of extra life. Like you'll find walls covered with old rootlets, and you'll find lots of skeletons and lots of grime in my corners and stuff. So it gets used.
Oh yeah, so it's like it's one of those things, where how you fell into such a cool thing to do. I think it's one of those things where a lot of us dream of having a job where we really, really enjoy what we do all the time. I'm in IT. I've been doing it for 30 years. I can't say that I really love it anymore. But but having a job, a career like that where you can really enjoy what you do and be a part of developing new games and that kind of stuff. To me, that's what a lot of people talk about when they talk about, oh, I wish I could do what I love, or I really want to enjoy my work and that kind of stuff. So it's that's really cool to do what you love. I imagine it can be stressful too.
Weird... Oh God, yeah. It's funny is that even when it's like when it comes to video game testing, I used to do that as well because that's what I did for a living prior to doing this full time. This is just a side hustle. But even when it was bad, it was still really good. You know what I mean? The juice is definitely worth the squeeze. And I love what I do. I love working with the people. But the funny thing about it that makes the most fun is seeing your book on the shelf is great. That's really cool. But talking to people about it is way cooler. Hearing, oh, my players, went to Skullport and they assassinated XYZ and they created all this chaos, and or my group of players were Harpers and they moved in and they ran a 2-year covert campaign trying to shut down the slavers. To me, that's always way more interesting than hearing about how you cleared one of my dungeons, which is cool too. But I like to hear when people make the thing that it's theirs. Like that becomes their Skullport. Their Skullport will never be my Skullport. But I just gave you the foundations and you ran with it and you made something beautiful out of it. I think that's the coolest part about the hobby. And that's the same thing with miniatures. Reaper makes the miniatures and you guys throw paint on them and they look awesome.
Yeah, exactly. We started with the miniatures and now we get a game to play them with coming. So speaking about Dungeon Dwellers, explain for everybody, what is Dungeon Dwellers? What, how did it start? Where did it come from? I know it has some history because I read the book. And I'd like our viewers to know more about Dungeon Dwellers and where it started and its background.
Well, starting with what it is that some people would call it a fantasy heartbreaker. And to be honest, I don't care for the term, not just because I wrote one, but because I think that's unfair. I think that everyone, no matter what it is, if you create a fantasy role-playing game, it's your vision of what fantasy should be at the time you wrote it. And I think that's beautiful. That's really cool. So whether you're into Pathfinder stuff or whether you're into Magic World or RuneQuest or whatever, that is your fantasy, right? So Dungeon Dwellers is our love letter to Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson, and all of the people responsible for the versions of D&D and AD&D we played up until, recently, and even the newer designers like Monty Cook and Jonathan Tweet. And, those guys, they're pioneers, right? They took an older game and they even advanced it further. The old school guys, they took war games and turned it into something new. So Dungeon Dwellers came out of our love for D&D, and this is no slight against the newer versions of D&D, it's just there were elements of it that just didn't make us happy, and it didn't make me want to write for it. I tried writing for 3X stuff, but it just didn't work. I tried Pathfinder, didn't quite work. And because there were just certain things about it that just didn't quite kind of fit where I was at Spacewise. And my boss was the same way. Ron was the same way. It was like, well, this isn't firing on the cylinders we want. It's like 90% there. But where's that 10%, that 15%? So what we did is we said, well, let's kind of take, the things that we love. Ability scores are simple. Everyone knows how attack rolls work. High rolls good, roll rolls not so great. Yeah, but let's put some stuff in there that's always been there, but was never in the rule books. Critical hits and fumbles. What if we took the magic system in new directions? Oh, like what? Well, let's make spells. Let's add spell points. Well, other games have used spell points. Yeah, and here's how ours are going to be different. So basically, it's our attempt to kind of not reinvent the wheel, but let's make a really good wheel, right? And as far as where it came from, beyond the game mechanic type stuff, because like 85% of it's familiar if you know any version of D&D. It's that 15% that makes it unique. But where Dungeon Dwellers came from is the miniatures, heritage, the old magazines and adverts and things like that showed like these beautiful lumps of lead, and we remembered that. And Reaper acquired all those molds and the name and everything else associated with it. And so we always had that sitting on a shelf. And so when I approached my boss one day and said, look, we've been toying with this stuff for like 10 years. We've been producing little bits of material here and there, but nothing, profound, nothing significant. And there were fans interested in it. At ReaperCon, we were running different runs. I ran Savage Worlds and Pathfinder, and, different versions of of our setting. People liked it. And I was like, well, if we really want to do this, I have to do this full time. I can't achieve our goals if we don't balls to the wallet. And so we could, Ed and Dave very kindly said, do it, and I was brought on, and we immediately hit the ground running, evaluating, and then we were like, let's call it Dungeon Dwellers, because DD, bam, bam, consternation. People are going to remember that. Heritage, fond memories, beautiful models, foundational, just like Grenadier, just like Ralpartha, there's heritage, right? And so let's appropriate that. Let's use that. Okay, well, where does D&D fall short? Doesn't mean it's wrong. It just, in our eyes, in our hearts, where did it not quite fire? And we saw it kind of moving in the direction of high fantasy. Mercedes Lackey, not J.R.R. Tolkien, right? So just different, not wrong, just different. And so we were like, let's make dungeons dangerous again. Let's make monsters scary. When somebody says dragon and 3X and Pathfinder, they go, oh, what color? No, let's take this in some new directions. Let's make the players wet themselves in terms of terror. But let's make the characters also. Let's look at the classes. Let's make them awesome again. When a fighter was profound, when a rogue was sneaky and wizards were guiley, So Dungeon Dwellers came out of all of our, I wouldn't say discontentment, but we were just a little unsettled with the offerings. And so Reaper very kindly gave us the resources to make that happen. And as a result, it's the game I still want. Having done nothing but this for like 4 years, I still love it. I look forward to getting up every morning. And even right now, I'm doing some pretty tedious stuff, with a calculator and figuring out how many gold pieces is a ring of dark vision worth, but it's still awesome because I know that a game master is going to hand out one of those rings of dark vision, and it's going to profoundly change how their game works, and the players are going to get excited about having them.
Yeah, I really like what you said, and I saw it in one of your YouTube descriptions too, was making it perilous again. Putting the peril back into dungeon crawling and some of the monsters that you experience, and not, a little less thinking and a little more, oh my god, there's a dragon, right? Not caring about what color it is. I think I remember you in one of your videos, you were saying, you want the players to feel fear, to not just run into something and be a murder hobo and say, I kill it, or I shoot an arrow at it. Well, you might want to, We've all been in that situation playing other RPGs where you got the person that just decides to kill anything that moves, and that could be and 9 times out of 10 it's not a bad thing for him to do that. Whereas, sounds like there could be some peril making those kind of decisions, which is good. Actually,
well, there's no certainty because game masters are in the very beginning of the Denizens book. And throughout the Game Master's Vault, I say, look, when the players expect one thing, that's cool. There's a certain kind of mentality of, ooh, this adventure's going to have trolls and it's going to be so cool. But what if one of the trolls turns out to be having a ring of fire resistance? All of a sudden, you're throwing that alchemist fire and it's just washing over him like water off of a duck, you know? So Game Masters are encouraged to get as creative as players, not to dominate them, not to own them, not to grief them, but to challenge them. I'm saying, go into dungeons, face danger. That's part of the game. Some players tend to play very timidly. It's from playing video games and stuff, and they play conservatively. That's fine. But where's the fun in like 2 steps short rest, 3 steps short rest? You know, and it's just it's not peril mitigation. It's adventure gaming, right? It's tabletop adventure gaming. So we're hoping to bring that to the players, and not everyone's going to love it. Some people are going to be like, no, it's too rough. Death is too easy, and that they're not wrong. You know, the audience is never wrong. But some people are going to go, oh yes, I actually feel threatened by owlbears. Holy crap, that's terrifying.
All right. Okay, so you had said you have described the game as old school RPG using modern design. What can you tell us more about that? What does that blend mean?
When I sit people down to learn our game, the first thing I say is that if you know any version of D&D, any edition, you know like 85% of this. So here's the deal. When I ask you to do something in the game, you should basically reach for a 20-sided die. Really easy. That's like 95% of the time correct. And then, so therefore, it has a consistent resolution mechanic. Earlier editions, and don't get me wrong, I have bookshelves full of earlier editions of D&D. And it was like, roll a d6 to search for secret doors. Okay, you're surprised 1 in 12, but you surprise monsters 1 in 8 because you're a dark elf. Ben Bar's lift gates is percentage. That's a lot of subsystems that could all be handled with a d20 roll. So we go off of the consistent d20 high mechanic. You want to roll high. 1s are never good. 20s are always awesome. There's like 85% of the game system right there. Everything else is just nuance. So, but weapons are dangerous. Monsters are dangerous. Getting surprised in our game is terrifying. If you're on the receiving end of it. So the mechanics really support the groove of, kind of grim and perilous gaming, if I can borrow Warhammer Fantasy Roleplays thing. But it still feels, it doesn't feel like 80th level World of Warcraft where characters look like angelic beings, right? Or paragons or something. It's still very grounded and kind of like Fafhrd and Grey Mouser, You might be a 10th level fighter with some cool goodies, but it's not like, you don't look like a Final Fantasy, high level character. It's not that kind of game. So we definitely like that idea of, armor kind of looks like real armor. Weapons look like real weapons. You don't have characters walking around with 12, 15 foot tall swords like in an anime, which is great. Those are great games. But it's just a different kind of a groove. If that's your D&D 5e or 2024, I support you 100%. Have fun with that. But Dungeon Dwellers is very much rooted in the early games of Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. I was a boy at the age of 12 playing at Robbie Matthews' house, and where everything was scary and new.
Oh. Great. Let's see. So
sorry, I ramble on about stuff like that because I just
no, it's good. No, I love it. So Dungeon
those are all selling points for me.
Yeah, those are selling points. I agree. I agree. So the Dungeon Dwellers, there's also a miniature line of Dungeon. Now that came first from the company that Reaper. Yeah, go ahead.
No. You're absolutely right. And I was just waiting for you to finish.
Okay. Yeah, the Dungeon Dwellers, the miniatures, and I believe did Dungeon Dwellers RPG exist at another company? Now it's being kind of redone and brought back. And explain the history of kind of how that came to be.
So it was Heritage Models, right? And they produced a couple of these amazing paint and play sets. If I have my way, we'll resurrect those. In fact, one of the adventures that the Crypt of the Sorcerer is being done by Bobby Jackson, one of our sculptors, and it's really cool. But basically, it had its own very simple 2d6 type game system, and so some people actually said, "Well, we should have just used that." And I was like, "Well, and we talked about it. We really did." But it had a miniatures line, which, these little paint play sets. And then there was a bunch of, various models, producing models for, let's face it, for D&D. And so it then kind of sort of entered into a period of dormancy. And around the same time when Reaper was kind of coming up, and they were the fresh-faced new kid, they had the Heritage line. They had acquired it. And so they have all the old molds and stuff. And so we also own like the micro games and things like that as well. Basically, we use the name, we use the ideas, and in fact, in some cases, we used a lot of the characters, like Nahus and things like that. There's a lot of characters that are actually being brought in with our new Dungeon Dwellers line of models, which is separate from Darkhaven Legends. There is some crossover, but they're kind of sort of, it's like Warlord, which is our war game that we used to produce, and we still kind of do. But they're on different continuums, different foci, right? And so Dungeon Dwellers has more in line with like the old Angus McBride Lord of the Rings covers that were on Middle Earth and whatnot, and in various art books. And so there's kind of a more realistic, less epic, heroic fantasy and more grim and gritty. And
some of the models remind me a little bit of later year Grenadier models.
There kind of is sometimes. I agree with you. Grenadier produced make some amazing stuff. I wish they were still around. But yeah. We all grew up with Grenadier and Ralpartha on our tables, and Heritage, of course. But yeah, it's been interesting, just the adventure. And my boss Ron actually wrote the history of Heritage that goes into our player's guide as our introduction.
Very, very cool. So had another kind of I had a question written down here. Where'd it go? So you're tying it into the miniatures that are Dungeon Dweller miniatures. What about the universe? Is that an existing Reaper universe? I've heard of like Adon, or is this a whole new world that you've created with Dungeon?
So 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I can't remember. Reaper produced this neat box set. It was their first war game called Darkhaven Apocalypse. Came in a box like this big, but it came with models and a world book and kind of like a primer on the world. And so it was a war game. It was a skirmish war game. It was really cute and fun. And it presented the world of Avalor. Now a lot of people say the world of Aden, but Aden is actually just one of the continents. It's like a big kind of a Pangea-like continent that goes north-south. And so there's other continents, of course, and it's on the world of Avalor. And so that world has been used in Darkhaven Legends, Darkhaven Legends Apocalypse, and also Warlord. So it shares real estate, but there are significant differences between them. And so we're playing in that continuum of Dungeon Dwellers, where the focus is on the heroes, and whereas Warlord is focused on like the big fights between like nations. And so there's a push by a lot of people to integrate a lot of stuff from Warlord, but there's a bunch of stuff in Warlord that I wouldn't say I disagree with, because it's the product of what the designers created, but not all of it jibes with kind of how we want Dungeon Dwellers to turn out. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to show up at your doorstep if you incorporate Crusaders and the Revan and things like that from Warlord into your Dungeon Dwellers game. Your game, your rules, man. I'm not gonna police your stuff, but they are on different continuums. But again, as they share real estate. So if you look at the maps, absolutely, it's the old map from Darkhaven Apocalypse. That's 20 some years old probably at this point. But we'll be revealing more and more of it, like Dreadmere and things like that, as time goes on.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, it's really neat to see the worlds. Now, do the books like go into? Oh, I'm assuming they go into all the details that somebody can homebrew into the universe that you've created in Dungeon Dwellers.
You can. It's all like Legos. You snap the pieces on that you want, and I'm serious. I've been in this long enough to not be overly protective of my stuff. And because it's yours. It's a beautiful thing to see someone make something theirs. And so if you go into like the Brinewind book, which that and the Savage Coast I think are both still available from Reaper, and I'm going to push hard to get those available as just free downloadable PDFs, because they're old enough at this point that why not just give them away. Brinewind is new enough that you can get that now. Brinewind being it is my Gothic love letter to some extent to some of the ideas behind Ravenloft. It's the most haunted city in Western Aiden, if not the world. And so it absolutely just oozes with Gothic romance, right? And where every house has a ghost, and there are some alleys you don't dare walk down and everyone knows. Haunts are just how that part of the world works. And so, yeah, that all of that lore has been snuck in, and we sneak in a lot of lore everywhere. Like if you read our monster book, there's like little suggestions for adventure hooks and stuff, and there's lots of little snippets, like how our dragons came into the world and stuff are kind of worked in there, edgewise. So we haven't had 40 years like the Forgotten Realms. So we're kind of sort of running to catch up to get that information out there. But there's going to be there's a whole setting guide. It's not particularly thick, but if you can get your hands on a copy of that Darkhaven Apocalypse, that booklet, it has a nicely designed little setting that was created by Ron Hawkins and Ed and a bunch of the Reaper people at the time. And then they kind of brought me in as kind of a freelance attaché, a little orbiting little moon, and I kind of contributed, and Ron and I have since kind of sort of taken it upon ourselves and just added more to it. ReaperCon has been really foundational in making all that happen, because all of a sudden we have to have the themes, and so the themes are worth developing, and so it's like, okay, well, here's the pirate city. Okay, well, here's this vast salt swamp full of all these street gangs that are fighting over turf, and so a lot of ReaperCon has basically been like the platform for creating and presenting lots of information about our world, long before we decided to do our own RPG.
Art Michael says monster books are the best coffee table.
Damn right.
And we were talking about that before, about even if you don't play these games, the books are fantastic just to read. I mean, they're just so much fun. They help you with your miniature painting. They help you with creating your own ideas of what these creatures may look like. Sometimes seeing a picture can lead to certain preconceived ideas of what something looks like, but reading it, you have to think, what does that look like? And it could actually give you more ideas than seeing those pictures. So, yeah. And then Painterly Git says, "This is a neat question, Git. Is there a tribe to Ed in the RPG books or an encounter? Are there any Easter eggs? You know, in Dungeon Dwellers?"
Do you guys really want me to tell you? I'll tell you. It's no big secret. It's no big secret.
Okay.
If you've read the Denizens book, you'll find it. So one of Ed was a sculptor. Ed was a dyed-in-the-wool. In addition to being an outstanding human being, he was a dyed-in-the-wool gamer nerd. He loved wargaming. He loved miniatures, and so he sculpted. One of his earliest sculpts was these things called the Arachno Assassins, and all they were, because they didn't really exist within the lore when it was just first sculpted. It was just a figure. But what they were is they were multi-armed skeletons, in some cases wielding 2 bows or having like six swords. And they were just these iconic, this is Ed's contribution to the game line. It was really cool. So what I did was, one of the first monsters that I wanted to put that was unique to our setting in the Denizens book was the Eldrazi Mage Slayer. And the Eldrazi Mage Slayers are created through a corrupt act of necromancy and alchemy, in which the creator assembles off of 3 living creatures, assembles the remains into a single figure, a single humanoid figure with like 4 to 6 arms. And they're meticulously constructed in like a Victor Frankenstein kind of way, even though they're only made out of bone. And then they're compressed into a backpack-like package about this big. And then a couple drops of blood activates them. You speak the name of the person who wronged you, provide some nail clippings or some of their hair, and the Eldrazi Mage Slayer rises up and out of the parcel, and it ruthlessly runs that person down. And so it's taking Ed's initial idea, which if you look at it just on the basis of a multi-armed skeleton and go, yeah, okay. And it takes it and turns it into something truly, it's just worthy of nightmare fuel and worthy of Ed's concept. And so I named it Ed, the Ed Rossi Mage Slayer. Ed's name is in the title.
Now, do those only work on mages, or can you send them out after corrupt politicians or the
reason they can be sent out
your bagel?
What's scary about them is, well, they're not particularly good. I would assume one would be good at of getting you the bagel. However, it would probably leave a massive body count between the front door and the front counter, right? So it shows up with your bagel and massive body count. But the reason why they're called Mage Slayers is because they have they're magic resistant. They're hard to affect with spells. And so they're particularly good at taking out like viziers, sorcerer kings, things like that. To me, I just thought it was a cool name. I had Eldrazi, that sounded kind of foreign. It sounded kind of cool, like Arabian Nightsy. And then the Mage Slayer just sounded cool. It sounded kind of cold-blooded and scary, But yeah, Ed lives on in our hearts and also our monster book.
Ara Michael says, I miss hanging out with people and just designing monsters. The hobby of RPGs can go so far. I mean, you can go, you can design your own monsters, you can design your own worlds, your own stories, and then paint your miniatures, design your own characters. You can pick things that you like and use it pre-generated or right out of a book, or you could pick other pieces that you really enjoy doing yourself. Because who has time for every part of a hobby? But it's really interesting how these RPGs can really, a person can join in and do things so many different ways. Just like it's like playing a video game. I played World of Warcraft for 20 years, and my wife liked to farm. I like to run dungeons. There's so many things you could do. Cooking, fishing, whatever you want to do. There's so many things that you can do in an RPG, and you don't have to do them all. But and you can pick what you like and do it. I'm sure there's something in the book that helps you do that too.
What I like it's almost a harkening back to the old school AD&D gaming, like in the old days of Dragon Magazine. I got plenty of stuff. I still have a bunch of Mayfair game stuff, a bunch of Judges Guild stuff from the old days.
Yeah,
I've got I got some old gray hockey and stuff, and so all that stuff can be incorporated. I mean, and it sounds like I could even develop a side continent or something off the cuff that. All that third-party stuff that I had from back in the day can all now be flooded back into it, and I like that.
Bolt it on, man. Make it yours, and I love it. I love hearing about. I don't care about. I killed this monster in 2 combat rounds because blah blah blah. I don't care. I want to hear the cool stories of how you made it yours, and how you guys did cool stuff. What I think is interesting about a lot of gaming is. It brings a lot of people to do lots of different things. Like my wife does junk journaling. We met at my buddy's AD&D 2nd edition game, and we've been married 28 years. And so, but she's into junk journaling, and there are other people who are into woodworking, and so they make and other people do 3D printing, and they make dice towers. Other people make the little dice boxes. So everyone's kind of bringing all these things together to the table. And it's a real harmonious union of just cool stuff. Miniatures are the same way. People are, using all kinds of materials to achieve these really cool effects. And tabletop gaming is the same way. It's everything. Everyone brings something different to the table, and it's really cool to see it all kind of come together. And it's all like today is different from tomorrow. So it's never going to be like what it is right now. It'll be different tomorrow. And I think that that's also really cool. It's a living, breathing thing.
I have a question.
I love
with all the old school tones you put with all the old school tones you put on the game and and melded with the modern as part of the old school tone. When the books and all that stuff, is it going to also include some coupons for some Elf Cola or Shasta Cola, some bad Cheetos, and some O'Grady potato chips, typical gaming food?
Man, I can't imagine a game without Cheetos and Mountain Dew. Come on, man. It's interesting is because I've seen when there's an intersection of gamers and ska members, I've seen some of the most beautiful, healthy spreads at a game table ever. But I've also seen the most grotesque KFC boxes stacked on top of Hot and Now bags, stacked on top of Domino's pizza boxes. I don't get between people and their choice of gaming snacks. It's like
we had a Greek chef that played with us for a while. Yeah, we had a Greek chef that played with us for a while. So every Christmas, every game session, we got baklava. Lots of good baklava.
Oh my God, that'd be so good.
Yeah, stuffed grape leaves would start to show up at a gaming session.
Oompa! Let's set some cheese on fire.
Gilded Brush says salad's not allowed. Gilded Brush says salad's not allowed. Pork rinds.
Hey man.
There you go.
Yeah, pork rinds. Oh, so good. The thing is, it's interesting because my wife, because she's the hostess with the mostest, right? So when we hosted face-to-face games, Rose would have charcuterie boards, and we just want pizza, Cheetos, and Mountain Dew, and she's busting out 3 different kinds of cheese, and says stuff like, "Oh God, I got to go warm up the cheese." The brie is not at room. The brie's too hot. You have to let it breathe for a few minutes. We're just like, what are you talking about? But some people take it to the next level, man. I'm not going to interfere. I knew one guy who was he was a microbrew guy, and so he would bring his latest every game session. He'd bring a 12-pack every session.
It's like the line from Ghostbusters. You think it's too warm in here for the brie? Oh my gosh.
Louis Skolnick. Nice.
Yeah. So I, there's one thing I want to know about Dungeon Dwellers that I was just thinking of. There's one thing, and people either love it or hate it from the old RPG. But is there mapping? I used to love mapping.
Well, in what sense? I'm looking behind me at all the maps I've got piled up.
There used to be like dungeon mapping, where you had to actually say, okay, oh, you get, you don't even know which directions, and then you had to kind of map it out. I remember doing it on graph paper.
You're referring to Gygaxian exploration.
Okay, right. Okay.
Okay, I don't know if anyone here has ever heard about this, but you can read about it from Rod Kuntz's various posts, and you can find them. They're out there. And what it was is Gygax used to play. He used to play like, hold on. He would play in the dark. He would have this little area of light, right, like a little pool of light with his notes and stuff, and he would sit behind some file cabinets. And on the other side of the room would be where the players sat. And there was no battle map. There was no graph paper that the game master, he would be like, okay, 30 feet from the door, the passageway splits left and right. And he would just describe it. And what the players got on paper was what they thought it looked like. Now, whether or not it was accurate was highly subjective, because whether or not they overheard or Gygax misspoke or whatever, that was their truth. Now, I play with a Mondo map. I have one of those giant Chessex Mondo maps. Not one of the big ones, one of the giant ones. It's like 8 feet long. And so wow. I don't mind drawing on that and saying that's what you see. I don't have a problem with that. If we're doing more extension dungeon crawling, I will frequently provide them with an updated version of the map as we play. I think it's kind of like, I don't want to say bad form, but taking advantage of the player's misunderstanding seems a little crass. It's a little cold-hearted. But that's very old school, right? But there's a mean-spiritedness behind some of it. And I don't want to punish my players for showing up and playing the game with me. I think that's a bad idea. I don't want to be the guy in the basement talking to himself, In my
that's day,
how game masters are.
In my day, when they would decide to map on their own and didn't want me to give them instructions like you were talking about, the same quote came up about 3 hours into the game. How did we end up back in the damn village?
And I kind of get it. I kind of do. But on the other hand, I can see the advantage of the players having because the characters are competent, right? The characters are, with very few exceptions, good at what they do, And so dungeon crawling is in their blood, and I want them to enjoy dungeon crawling. So putting up barriers to their enjoyment, I think, is a bad idea. So when I generate content, I do a lot of mapping. If you look at I do all of our maps. I don't do the finished artistic renderings, but I design all the maps. And so, like when you look at the Alderbrook map, that's in I think that's in Hill's Edge. That map, right down to like the little like flower pots that are outlining people's properties, those are all put in place by me, and then we have a real artist actually make them look nice. But I don't have a problem with handing that to the players and saying, well, you guys are locals. You've been to Alderbrook 10 times on your various excursions into the Hills Edge province or into the West Barrow Hills. So here, and I even have a little key next to it, and there's no surprises in that regard. But when they crawl through dungeons, they have torches. We usually have a character that's usually pretty good at cartography, and so they're making maps as they explore. So yeah, I don't want to hurt anyone's fun by taking advantage of things. There are better ways to torture players.
Yeah, like Black Skull and his story about the frog with the gold coin that they tried to figure out what was wrong with it for how many hours was it, Black Skull?
It was 6 hours of gameplay.
Nice. Well,
Big
here's the
friend
thing.
and Denver.
They had fun. It doesn't matter how long it took. They had
Well,
fun.
actually, Wolf, they didn't have fun. Then it started to become fun, and then when they realized the solution, I was banned from the table for a week, and I got punched in the head. But I'll tell you that story when I get there.
Yeah, that's an awesome story.
I definitely need that. I definitely need that story. Yeah. Well, you know, it's there's all different ways to do stuff, man. And I've got plenty of like intensely goofy stories, and I've got really sad, serious stories, and that's what's neat about the hobby is there's room for all of it. You know, people who want to be barista teenage adventurers like Monster High, you know, Strixhaven stuff, totally has its place, right? And that's great. And then there's the dark, gloomy World of Darkness-y type stuff, totally has its place, you know. And that's what's great about the hobby is that there's just so much to it, and I love that about gaming. And I since the day, and I'll show you guys the picture here. This is my framed Dynamite magazine with the the article on Dungeons and Dragons.
Wow, I think I remember that in the 6th grade.
Yeah, 1984-ish, right? And this is the real magazine. This isn't a photocopy or anything.
Cool.
It's framed. It's on my wall because I read this when I was 3rd or 4th grade, which would put me at around 9 or not even. And I didn't understand it, but I knew I wanted to be part of it. You know, Lord of the Rings, but I get to play a character of my own making, and then I actually told the story about how I became a game master out of spite, not love, out of spite, and that's in our Game Masters book. That's in our Game Masters vault, and I've never regretted it. I love that look on players' faces when the horrible happens or when the triumph happens. I love being there to witness their glory. You know, and you know, storytelling is a living art form, and I think that's what's so great about it.
Yeah, my entry into how do you say Dungeons and Dragons was an article from Games Magazine back when I was in high school, and they discussed a session of D&D, and I was just reading through and I said, I do not understand this. How do you play this? There's no board? There's no, you know, are there no cards or anything like that? It was another year until I figured out how to actually play the game from reading the player's manual.
And this was before YouTube. It wasn't like Critical Role existed where people could just watch it for 10 minutes and go, oh, I get it. You know, this is before that. You know, it's like where we had to figure it out. And most people learn tabletop gaming from their older brother or a sibling or something, somebody who brings it home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so people nowadays, back in my day, you know, but people nowadays have a lot of resources to kind of like learn what good table behavior is or what's bad table behavior and then incorporate that, you know. But you know, it's a really neat period where we find ourselves in because all that information is available.
Imagine trying to learn how to play D&D from just the Dungeon Master's Guide or the Player's Manual.
Well, that's funny too because they were both written in stereo. Gary wrote one thing for the Player's Manual, then he wrote another thing for the DMG, and you had to kind of throw out what you could and keep the rest. Otherwise, you got conflicting views on everything.
It was a Venn diagram, and somewhere in between is where you play. It was like,
yeah. My introduction was I had learned. There was a friend of mine when I was in 8th grade who actually was playing with it. He had a Dragon magazine, and we were reading it in science class when we weren't supposed to. And he gave me the tear out card because at the time you had to send away for Dungeons and Dragons. There were no books. Dalton's wasn't carrying it yet. There was nowhere to find it. 4 to 6 weeks later, I got my tan box. I was ready to go. And
did you have the wood grain box, the little wood grain box?
No, just the tan cover just before the red box came out.
Yeah. There was, it was, but they were small books. They were like this big.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. That is so cool.
And we started reading the rules, and back in those days, the rules were even looser than they were Red D&D and then AD&D, and we were like, I guess we have to make the rest of this up, and that's how we got going.
Yeah, my introduction was Moldvay Cook Basic, the red box set, before Menser got a hold of it and made a massively good product. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Moldvay Cook with the Errol Otis covers. But Menser really took the game in a new direction and really polished the crap out of it. And Aaron Alston, when he did the Rule Cyclopedia, took it even further and made an even slicker version of Beckney, Basic Expert, Companion, Masters, and Immortals. Those are great books. Those are so cool. But yeah, it's very opaque. Like, I read Moldvay Cook a million times over.
Yeah, the box that I got was almost akin to Chainmail Plus.
Yep. I mean, that was back before they even incorporated like the thief. Like the number of classes was severely limited. There was no ranger back then. That was all like the Greyhawk.
In fact, when I ran my game store, I ran a series of old school AD&D stuff, and I started off with the D&D modules and all that. So when some of the younger guys would come in who were already playing 3.0, they'd say, "Oh, you're playing D&D. What are you?" And I'd say, "Well, I'm a dwarf." "Oh, well, dwarf what?" "No, I'm a dwarf. That's it. I'm an elf. I'm a magic user. I'm a thief."
Yep. You're an elf. You are a magic user / fighter. We talked when Ron and I were first talking with Bobby Jackson and Gene Van Horn, a bunch of the sculptors. We talked about, do we want to do race as class? And we quickly kind of abandoned the idea because it's a little too old school to say, no, you're a halfling, you never get to learn magic. It felt too much like jamming your foot on the brake and telling people, no, that's not how you should play. So we quickly abandoned the idea. Although I get it, I really do. It reinforces the world if elves are always wizards / fighters, if they're player characters. If halflings are always halflings, right? You don't end up with like wildly weird character concepts that only exist because the player thought it would be funny. But I think that it's perfectly valid, and I think you can have a lot of fun with those older editions of the game. It's just, to be honest, I always rankled it. Okay, look for the secret door. Roll a d6. Are you a human? Yes. You only find it on a 1. Why aren't we rolling a different die for this? And so that consistency, I wanted the game to be easily taught, so that if I tell you 95% of the time, every pass-fail roll in the game is resolved with a d20 roll. If you know that, system-wise, you always know to probably reach for the 20-sider when I ask you to do something.
Yeah, that's a good point. Having a game that's easily taught. I know I struggle with that. I find it very difficult to teach most games. D&D was one of those. Back in the day, a lot of board games are very incredibly difficult to teach people, and you gotta constantly go back to the rule book, and that makes the game not fun. You got to go back to the rule book all the time. You got to go back to the manual all the time. Look this up, look that up, look this up, look that up. And unless you play it often enough that you can not do that anymore, which is rare. I don't know how many games that I've played that, I'll play it a few times and think I got it, and then you put it down for a month and you start over. So, having something that's
your first game of chess is not going to be fun. Your first game of a role-playing game should be. And so anything that players, the group, not just the players, not just the game master, but the group, anything that the group can do to ease a player's transition into the game is a good thing. Barriers are only fun if they give you a sense of accomplishment when you overcome them. And so you have to make sure that there's plenty of opportunities for success. Years ago, there was a guy I played with, and he has this Rollmaster story, and I'm a big Rollmaster guy. In fact, I have a friend. I recently made friends with a Rollmaster guy, and so I've got a stack of the new Rollmaster edition behind me.
Chartmaster Deluxe? Really? Chartmaster
Hey man,
Deluxe?
don't you call it that? Because I know people that love Dungeon Crawl Classics, and that game is full of charts. So D&D 3.0 is full of charts. Okay, so anyways, but the thing is that the core system is simple, right? But there are a lot of charts. That is totally true. But the thing is that this guy told the story of how they spent 3 or 4 hours creating characters, and then his character crossed a crossbow bolt in the head, and it killed him in the first round of the first combat. And he will never play Rollmaster again, because that's all he remembers. A one arbitrary lucky roll on the game master's part punched his character's clock round 1 after 4 hours of grinding through character creation. So by taking this background Dungeon Dwellers, we have a million options for race and class. We could go the route of 5e in 2024 and create a billion of them and give you a billion in the first book. Like there's 48 subclasses in the core player's handbook or something. It's like 17 races too. And there's sub races. And that's a lot. And so there's a lot of choices to be made. And you're also saying that the world is the world's largest buffet. You know, mix and match to put whatever you want on your plate and have at it. That's okay. I mean, that's fine. The problem is that I don't necessarily want peanut butter on my steak, right? I want them separate, right? The thing is that you're not really telling players much about the world if you just say, oh, everything exists. Your world is going to get really, really beige really quickly. So what we did is we said, what are the 4 classes? What are the 4 races? We're going to allude to the existence of all the different versions of fighters, and you know, wizards and things like that. We're going to give you more options later, but let's give you the most focused, specific. These are what you can play right now, but you can play other stuff after we get this stuff out there, you know. And so you're going to get your wood elves versus your high elves versus your gray elves versus your you're going to get your paladins and your barbarians and your bards. You'll get them. But we wanted to give you a very down and gritty and dirty version of high fantasy that thrilled us when we were kids. You know, when we cracked open the Moldavade Cook, you know. That's what we wanted to deliver on. And I think that we do a really good job of it. Our fighter is not just a version of the fighter. They feel the first time your character triggers their lay waste ability and clears the table of like 4 monsters on their turn, you're going to go, okay, I get it now. Okay, I get it now. So yeah, you'll feel that it's a different game.
Billion variant human. Belly Savala says a friend's mother burned my books. Stayed the weekend with them, and we played D&D in their shed at night because his mom believed the satanic craziness. Woke up the next morning, she had burned his books, 4 of mine in their fireplace. She eventually paid me for them. What more? But it left a lasting memory.
So,
Oh,
who said that?
that was Belly Savalas, one of our viewers.
Belly Savalas, this goes out to you, buddy. I am really sorry. Your mother had the best of intentions. She just kind of got caught up in like a weird herd thing. I'm sorry. You were not the first person I heard that had that happen. But I will say, I salute you, sir, for going around behind her back and still playing. You made the right choice. You made the right choice. You're not the first person I've ever heard have that happen. It's really sad. I mean, I was there when the Satanic Panic blew up because we were playing for a couple years, and then all of a sudden it was wrong. But here's what's interesting about that. It's stupidity, right? It's stupid. And before that, it was rock and roll, right? What's interesting is that with the right people around you, they will insulate and they will nurture you. And that's what happened with us in my little group. When we were in middle school, we were playing in the 45-minute period for lunch, right? 45 minutes, hour, whatever it was. And we had this giant cafetorium, which was like 400 people. And we were playing, but this generated a vibe within the other kids who didn't understand it, and they wanted to mess with the outcasts. So instead of just telling us to stop, because the lunch ladies could have told us to just stop, what happened instead was they said, let's protect these young kids who aren't hurting anybody. And what they did is they put a couple of tables up on the stage behind soundproof curtains. And what we would do is we would show up, we would get our lunches, and we would go up on stage through the side, through stage left. And we would sit up there and we would talk about nerdy crap. We would roll dice, and we were elves and, fight dragons, and they protected us. And it was all the lunch ladies and also the principal of that school. And they were 100% supportive of us. And so my mom did the same thing. My mom had some misgivings. She was a little concerned. But you know what she did know? She knew that if her son and all those other kids were at her house Friday night and Saturday night playing D&D, she knew that we weren't out getting in trouble. We weren't out getting into car crashes. We weren't out getting girls pregnant. We weren't out drinking and doing drugs. We were saving our money for the latest RuneQuest supplement, not buying cocaine, right? So having the right people around you to nurture your love of things is a good thing. And so that's what I do with my nieces and nephews. I've got them gaming, and I'm finding what they love as a result. And it'd be interesting to hear what they say to their friends after a weekend playing. I create games for my nephews and nieces. I don't run them Dungeon Dwellers. Sorry, Ron. I'm sorry. But my 9-year-old nephew isn't ready for Dungeon Dwellers. So what I did is I wrote a game called Dinky Delvers for them. And so
cool. I thought you were going to say Darkest Dungeon for a moment.
No, not Darkest Dungeon, but Dinky Delvers, man. It's like cute little chibi dungeon dwellers, And so it would be really neat to hear what they have to say about, this weekend we fought a growl bear and and so it's very silly and funny. But the thing is I'm still teaching them, you've got to have torches, you've got to buy some rations when you're in town or your character goes hungry. So it's very sneaky on my part, the things that I'm instilling within them.
We slaughtered a village of mouselings.
Yep, it's very subversive. Their first adventure, they torched a troll. One of the characters has a flaming sword. Another character found some alchemist fire, and they torched a troll. And so the next week or two, they presented me with a coffee cup, an Uncle Joseph coffee cup, and they put all the monsters that they had brutally killed on their coffee cup that they had their mother make for them in the local mall. So I've got this awesome coffee cup with a burning troll on it, drawn by the kids.
Yeah, my parents and all of our parents originally were like, they always knew where we were. They knew we weren't, so they just let alone. And they thought, we were responsible enough to not take it to whatever ridiculous extremes they'd heard. And I mowed lawns to afford modules for the first 3 years I played.
Hell yeah, man. It paid for my addiction. Got to pay for it somehow.
Voxelforge says, unfortunately, I was a very handsome young man. Even with playing RPGs, I got a girl pregnant.
Oh, ouch.
Wow.
So, all I can say to him is, on behalf of all of the young guys in high school who weren't getting any, I salute you, sir. Congratulations on passing your genes on to the next generation. You are officially fit. According to biological terms, you, sir, are fit.
Dungeons and Dragons, Gary Gygax's form of birth control.
Hey, man, yeah, sorry, I can't go out on a date. There were a number of girls that expressed interest when I was in high school that I was like, nah, I'm running Paranoia that night. I can't go out on a date this Friday.
Oh dear!
In our group, we were actually
were you guys really
outnumbered
good
by
friends?
the girls, us guys. So there were actually more girls in our D&D group than guys.
Oh.
And yeah, there was quite a lot of musical chairs.
So Wolf, how friendly were you guys that you could play Paranoia and not kill each other or not be friends anymore?
Look, think about Paranoia as this. It's like any role-playing game. With the right group, it's awesome. With the wrong group, it's a waste of your time. I would never run Paranoia for my nieces or nephews. I would never run Paranoia for most, and this is not a slam on anybody. I would never run Paranoia for 99% of any generation after Generation X.
Yeah, I agree.
Because the flavor, one, the jokes are old, right? The whole 1984 Big Brother type stuff, the dystopia type stuff, it's different than the Hunger Games, right? Like that's a very different presentation of information. And so the Jim Holloway approach to silly gaming is just it's not above players, it's just beyond them. Like they don't see the point. Like, why would we actively conspire against each other? Oh, we only have 6 lives. Well, I don't want to waste a life. Oh, I lost a life. This is the worst game ever.
Mm-hmm.
They're not wrong. It's just it's not the right group. And so I've tried multiple times running with younger people, and it's pointless.
So Wolf, as the
right group. Speaking of the right group, I was just going to say, you mentioned like Fawford and the Grey Mouser before.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of stuff that we grew up on, and that is the lingua franca of Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh,
and I'm afraid the younger generations are not familiar with, stuff like Fritz Lever's stuff.
Langmar and Nawan, man. It just it's so good.
Or Michael Moorcock's stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. Elric and
Twilight.
Yeah. Elric and the Eternal Champion.
The thing is that you're talking about a completely different kind of fantasy that they're used to. They grew up on Artemis Fowl, and Harry Potter, and we grew up on a Conan of Hyboria. It's just a different thing.
I even found younger groups as I went, as I moved on and still played, but I was teaching younger groups. I found that they didn't seem to grasp the actual black and white magic of New Wand. They didn't get that there is no New Wands, it's one or the other. And it kind of blew their minds because, they were mainly second edition babies. They didn't know what was going on. And that's when I had to kind of quit running it.
Yeah, it's funny because even simple games, right? Because I ran Toon. My company I worked for when I was out in Northern California would do these holiday events where we would shut the studio down at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. People's families would show up, snacks. They get to play our game that we're working on, and then in the evening we had dinner, usually served by the bigwigs, right? And so there was this gap between snacks and dinner where there would be an hour or two, and I would run games for the kids. And so one year I ran Toon. Hey, a cartoon game, kids will get this. No, they didn't. Classic Looney Tune mechanisms do not work. These kids grew up on SpongeBob SquarePants and Chowder and a lot of the Hey Arnold. They grew up on very different kinds of animation, which is very non-aggressive, non-threatening, not provocative, everything that Looney Tunes is not. And so I was running a scenario in which the players were basically playing a bunch of out-of-tune type or out-of-work cartoon characters that were replaced by computer-generated versions of themselves. right? These hand-drawn versus CGI. And so there was a nuance there. There was some commentary from the game master there. And so the scenario was that they were playing a bunch of scabs on a construction site, and the mob shows up. At first they have to get their way through the angry, union, and then the mob showed up looking for their cut. And when the mob showed up, one of the characters, Mac the mouse, picked up a brick, threatened at one of the kids, and picked up a brick, and then hit the character in the face with the brick. Now in Looney Tunes, there's no blood or anything like that. There's just a pow, and onomatopoeia, and there's like a splash on the page, like a pow, and then the character takes a couple hit points. But the player and his mom looked mortified. And at that very moment, I realized I was pitching the wrong game to the wrong people. Tune's great. I love it. But you have to grasp what it is and what the expectations are. Same with Paranoia. Same with Kobolds Ate My Baby. Same with, for example, same with Empire of the Petal Throne.
Wow.
You got to have the right group. You got to have the right group for that. Otherwise, if they come into this and they want elves and dwarves, you and the players are not on the same page.
That happened a lot with Pendragon too.
Oh, great example. Yeah. You got to have fans of Mallory. You got to have someone that's read Le Morte d'Arthur.
And you have to have fans who have to accept the fact that the game does end. And your character's done. The story's over. Not a good fit for a lot of people.
No, to somebody who's used to World of Warcraft and you're waiting for that next expansion to push the level out to 120, the idea of ending a game is scary. And I've had players, and I get it. People have different tolerance levels. I actually talk about this in the Game Master's Vault under like safe gaming. It's very in vogue to talk about such things, but I think it's fair. I think it's a legitimate thing to talk about. I don't want anyone at my table to feel uncomfortable or vulnerable. And it's really important that you support your players and they understand what that you're looking out for them, and they're looking out for you. But it's you got to just kind of make sure everything kind of jives. Like Empire of the Petal Throne has institutionalized slavery, and the gods are not benevolent Greek gods that are looking down at us. Oh, I'm looking out for you. No, these are dark entities that have their own motivations, and they've never been human. So yeah, it's important to kind of sort of look out for each other at the table, and everyone wants to have fun.
Yeah.
It's people stuff.
Got about a half
in a family
hour.
game. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Quantum, and we'll.
I was going to
we got
say
about
I
a half
was
hour.
running a family game of We Be Goblins, and the kids. My kids were very much into the whole game, loved the idea of being goblins, loved the idea of being, like amoral, and everything was perfect until they realized that dogs and goblins were mortal enemies. And that was a no-go for them. At that point, they no longer had buy-in because, we don't want to hurt dogs.
Yeah. Kids want pets, but they want pets to be able to do stuff for them, but they don't like it when that pet gets hurt.
Yep.
And so when you run games for kids, you have to be really careful. Nothing can have lasting. Things can have consequences, but that is a very slippery slope. You can't override the fun. I've had players. One of my players, I was running Fairy's Tale Deluxe from Green Ronin, where you play fairies that are like this tall in a big fantasy world. And my niece, who was really into the game, she was very invested in the game. They came across a group of kobolds, not the D&D little dog lizard guys, like Western European Germanic kobolds, little short, little wizened guys, right? They were miners, and the little gnomes were working out of a mine, and so the players. She noticed that one of those little guys was pushing a little mining cart, and a gemstone fell off the top of the pile of stones, and it glimmered, and I baited the hook. I made it really attractive, and she could sense the magic within it, and it had a life. And so she picked it up, and I was like, I said, do you want to like run ahead and try to put it back on the mine car, or do you want to keep it? She goes, well, do I want to keep it? I said, well, it's really pretty. It's warm in your hand. You can see your reflection in it like multiplied by 1,000 times, and you look awesome. She goes, no, I want to keep it. And I said, well, you do realize that it's not your mine, and it's not your stone to keep. Game master warning her. And so she goes, oh, I understand. I was like, okay, cool. I said, well, as soon as you put it in your little fanny pack of holding, you can feel like someone just put a couple drops of black ink into some water, and it spreads out like a dark cloud, and it darkens the water. I said, you take a point of dark essence. And so she goes, oh, and so I handed over this little black jewel, and I slid it across. I said, well, this is part of your character now until you fix it. And she panicked. She actually had a full-on panic attack at the table. And it was a good lesson to learn as a game master. Now, I didn't take it too far. I of course made it possible for her to kind of work it off, but she and the other girls that she was playing with, my other nieces, they were terrified of that dark essence. They were really afraid because they had met other characters and creatures that had been consumed by their dark essence, and so it worked. That consequence scared the living crap out of them. Scared straight. Yeah, it sure did. She was straight and narrow from that point on. So yeah, but it was a triumph of a game because when she finally found she found kind of sort of like these various things she was able to do. She returned to the kobolds, and she admitted that she had taken it, and she felt really bad. And I mentioned that she could feel that the black cloud kind of pulled back together into a solid mass and flowed back back into the medicine dropper. And then she felt like just the rush, and she then felt like the shadow drip, because she always had an extra shadow at that point, and the shadow then just kind of sublimated and boiled off, and was gone. So it was a good moment at the table. It was one of those like great kind of moments. The girls got up and cheered, and they were running around the room like little banshees. But yeah, it was a good moment. But it could have gone the other way. I ran up against the Dark Master for a group of people at one point. My niece, a much older niece, they were 5e fans, and they were used to basically sitting around and bull crapping like for most of the time and not getting much done. And so in their combat with a couple of goblins and a goblin like sub chief and like a wolf, one of the characters, because it was Rollmaster basically, she got like 3 fingers cut off in one hand because I got a lucky roll in. And they weren't being particularly good at dealing with the threat. They were trying to find ways to talk me out of the problem, and so it basically killed the game. The idea of a character that instead of just taking 3 hit points of damage, she lost 3 fingers. It basically ruined the game for her. It was a lesson to be learned by me. Even though they were able to find people that could reattach the fingers, and there was no loss of mobility or there anything, but it took herbs and it took a little bit of magic, and she was scared. Like the blood loss, the brutality of the combat system was too much for them. They were ready for hit points, and they wanted adventure time. Is what their expectation was. They wanted adventure time. They got Rollmaster.
So a couple more questions here, and then we're gonna open up. Painty Paints' rating into the Monster Den. Welcome in, everybody. We're talking with Reaper Wolf from Reaper Miniatures about Dungeon Dwellers, and thank you so much for that raid. I got a couple of questions. Think about any questions from the audience that you might have about Dungeon Dwellers, and I do have a couple more questions here before we get to our question of the day after our question and answer session. Is what was your biggest challenge, as far as the creation of Dungeon Dwellers? What kept you up at night for a while trying to figure it out?
That's a damn good question. All of it. I would say, well, as the sole author and designer, because it was just me, and the book was thick. So the most of it was striking that right balance, finding that thing that I know that would appeal to people besides me, like not just satisfying me, but finding the stuff that I think players would like. You know, the spell point system, rolling every round for initiative, weapons having different traits, finding the right balance between crunch enough to make the game worth playing and old school enough to appeal to all those cool guys that taught me how to game a million years ago. So finding all those little balance points was like really hard. And it took some iteration to make it all kind of come together. And we're still finding little things here and there that like, like some people don't want to deal with, there's a lot of hand waving in modern game. And me, because we're a miniatures company, facing matters. Because that's what the whole point behind the miniature is. Otherwise, you can just use a POG or a Lego, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, either of those choices, but we're a miniature company. So the miniatures have to be important to gameplay. So yeah, your shield doesn't protect you from behind. Sorry. But somebody pointed out, well, can you turn even if it's not your turn? And I said, well, it should cost you something. And then that brought up a great optional rule, and that is you can burn your one reaction per turn to about face, and now your shield counts. And within the drama of the game, that's exciting. Do I use it now, or do I want to save it in case that monster closes with me and I get a free swing? So yeah, it's just finding those right elements. Can I sell to the modern player and the OG player? Finding those elements, and then also making me happy as a result. Because I want to compromise, but I don't want to compromise too much.
Yeah, there's a lot to deal with when you're talking about new players, old players. Yeah, I could definitely see how that could be. I mean, even video games you deal with, especially one that's been around 20 years, like World of Warcraft. You got the new players coming in who want easy, super easy stuff. They just want to go into adventure mode and forget about actually dying. And then you got the old school people who want to, get that peril. They want to, not be able to just run into a situation and kill everything. And then you've got them fighting constantly. Got the old school people and the new people, and a company that's trying to sort it out.
You can't make everybody happy, but the goal is to try. Like I want to sell the toys, but I also want to sell our paper, right? So I want to do both because I want the toys too.
So everybody, post your questions in chat, and we'll get to some user or viewer questions here just in a second.
Anything you want. I don't care what it is. You can ask me anything you want about Dungeon Dwellers. It's totally cool.
I have a question.
I got to basically talk about anything.
So just before we get into the question and answers here, where can people get this? Where is Dungeon Dwellers at right now as far as availability? Where do people go to get it? When can they look? Well, I know we don't know exactly when it's coming out, but what people who say, "Hey, I want to go out and get this," what's the next step for them?
I wish I had a time machine. Why did I not have a DeLorean? I swear. I wish we could done this like a month ago, because we just closed the pledge manager for the Kickstarter on August 1st. So this is where I break your heart and say, well, you have to wait for it to be in print. That's sort of true. There are copies of the PDF floating around. People that are part of our Kickstarter already have them. If you share it with your group, I don't care. If you share it, if you acquire it through some way, yeah, it's unfortunate, but hopefully you grab the books when they're available for sale. We have an active community on Discord. We have an active community on our forums. I wish it was more active, but majority of it's on Discord. We have lots of updates on our Kickstarter page. Our books, all of the stuff will be out very soon. all the books are wrapped up. I'm literally working on the Game Master's Vault like tonight. Like I'm working on it right after we're done talking. And you'll be able to get it. I sincerely hope before Christmas. I sincerely hope. And it's possible, I guess is the best way to say it. But you will be able to acquire right now Player's Guide, Game Master's Vault, Denizens of the Dungeon, Volume 1. There are many volumes in the planning stages. The Hills Edge Province Gazetteer, the Fortress of Peril Mega Adventure combines 3 adventures, taking you from levels 1 to 7. It provides tons of cool information. And then there's also a Caverns of Doom Upper Halls in the works. That'll be worked on after ReaperCon. And we'll be wrapping that up in a couple months. There's also a ton of Trouble adventures. There's like an anthology of adventures as well, as I recall. But Game Master Screen, all that stuff will be available as well. We're dealing with the whole tariff stuff, and as everybody else is as well. So be patient.
Daniel Leggett, you had a question?
Yes, sir. Besides the noble internet troll, what monster is your favorite that is tied to the Dungeon Dwellers RPG?
Like a unique monster, like that I took in new directions, or a monster that is just like, this is the coolest frickin' monster. I love this one since day one.
Coolest frickin' monster. I love this one.
My favorite monster of all time is the Griffin. It's weird, and I admit that freely, but I've always loved the appearance of that chimerical creature. For whatever reason, I just love griffins. My favorite monster in the setting that I put into one of our books is a zombie minotaur that a family brought in. They purchased it from a purveyor, and it now walks. It walks in a path back and forth between a couple of rooms in the Fortress of Peril adventure. And I have on good authority that Jason Weeby is going to be sculpting it. So that, I don't know if anyone's mentioned that ever, so that might be breaking news for you guys.
Gray Mouser asks, is Dungeon Dwellers rules or guidelines? Or both?
It's both. If you think I'm completely out of my mind by making you roll initiative every round and you want to use D&D 5e, cool. Bolt that right on, man. Make that game your own. Everything's a guideline. Everything's a house rule. I just came up with stuff, right? I'm just some guy. So make yourself happy is the way that I tell people. If you want to bolt on, if you want to put warlocks in your game and you create a new version, you put them in play, cool, awesome, do it. Your game, your rules.
Voxel Forge asks, I'm curious about the miniatures. What part of the Reaper line is attached to this?
We have the Dungeon Dwellers line of models, which are all plastic. They're all plastic. I don't believe there are any metal models in that range. But any range, if you want to use a Lego, I think that's cool. But we have the Dungeon Dwellers line, which continues to expand. I haven't looked at Reaper's front page about Dungeon Dwellers and miniatures in like a couple months, and I'm like, holy crap, there's been a ton of releases. And what's interesting is that a bunch of the older range models are also are being scanned and are kind of quietly making their way in, either as new versions or as Dungeon Dweller versions.
I love Black Skull's comment. Caverns of Doom? Why always Doom? Why not Caverns of Major Annoyance, or Caverns of Uncomfortability, or Caverns of Avoidance?
Well, I think that it looks cooler on page. Caverns of Mild Annoyance. That has a certain appeal. Caverns of Pestering, But yeah, I feel you, man. It's funny when you come up with names for stuff. You can't, like years ago, I realized that names are important. So I give a lot of thought to like how something looks on the page. And there was a guy in college who played Doink the Frickin' Amazing, and that's what his character's name was. And it's funny for the first. I go into this in the Game Master's Vault under like creating appropriate content for the game, and in some groups, Doink the Frickin' Amazing totally works. Like that's Discworld, right? But in some groups, that would really annoy some of the players. So I'm always kind of careful of what I put on the page. So I'm really careful about pun names. Like Ed Greenwood was notorious for pun names, and so when I wrote Skullport, there's a pair of gnomes named Tick and Tock, but their names are really long, so you probably won't realize it unless you read unless you look at their names and say, oh yeah, it's Tick and Tock, and they're two clocksmiths. But yeah, I realized the Caverns of Doom, but also I will point out that was part of the original Dungeon Dwellers line. The Caverns of Doom was part of that. The Crypt of the Sorcerer, the Caverns of Doom were both those paint and play box sets. So there's history behind it.
Yeah, that would be neat to see paint and play box sets. I know there's a lot of
I know
products coming out that are like that. Just have a module and minis to go with the module that just plug right in. Either a side quest, sometimes there's side quests, or sometimes they're an entire campaign or part of.
Or if you get really hard up, you could use the random dungeon generator in the back of the old DMG.
We have one in the Game Master's Vault too. And ours is that.
That's so cool.
It's fresh in my mind because
Wolf, can you actually generate a mature red dragon in the 10x10 room?
So that's funny you should ask. So one thing you have to realize is that the Adonian dragons are not ranked by age, they're ranked by size. So if you run into, like my players, my 6th level playtest group ran into a cow-sized dragon, and they're terrified of it. Because the dragons, if you get out our Denizens book and look at the dragon entry, they are disproportionately awful. And they don't have to be big. Dragons do not have to be big to be terrifying, because they're very beefy on their own. Even like a collie-sized dragon can wipe the floor with most players, because they have ridiculously high defense. Their breath weapon causes massive amounts of damage, and they are disproportionately strong. Oh, and they're fast. Like most dragons have like a D10 or a D12 for initiative, whereas a broadsword's like a D8. So yeah, they're scary. So you can run into a dragon of any size, but if you run into one of the big ones, it's going to be bad. Your game masters just basically decided to teach you a lesson. We wanted dragons to be scary again. So, it's a white dragon. We'll just load up with a bunch of fire spells. No big deal. Probably kill it in 2 rounds. Not in Dungeon Dwellers. They're terrifying.
The old AD&D dungeon generation was weird. If I remember, you could actually generate a herd of giraffes in a hallway.
Yeah. I don't know if the giraffes were on the dungeon encounter table, but I'm sure that it generated some weird results. I make it very clear in that section that says, well, anything that seems a little weird, re-roll it or pick something. It was neat. I love that. I love that table. That's why I devoted almost a week to create our own version of it. In fact, it's imperfect. I'll be fully honest here. One of the things I have to do in terms of polish this week, while Ron is busy incorporating all the stuff I'm working on, is I'm going to hurriedly go through that system and add a couple more flavor tables, like what's in the room. And it also needs another table to populate it. Does it have a feature? Does it have a trap? Does it have a feature and a trap? Does it have a monster? That's the one thing I didn't do. But I did generate. You can generate the physical environment pretty effectively with the system in the Game Master's Vault. But it's a love letter to that wonderful system that Gygax gave us in the DMG for AD&D.
To tell you how quirky that table can be, I actually was running a game when we were rolling straight off that table, and the group actually ended up in a large room that was full of fountains, and all the furniture were mimics.
Yeah, that joke, that meme, the one where it's like I laughed, the bartender laughed, the table laughed. I get it. I think that's cute. But unfortunately, it took some of the teeth out of the mimic. You know what I mean? It's no longer really scary. So when my players ran into a mimic, the dungeon dweller, what they call, they're mimics, but they also have a different word. There's a different term for them. Something beasts. But basically, they're with very few exceptions. There's very few animal intelligence ones. They're mostly pretty smart, and so they're willing to negotiate. And so my players have negotiated. They actually met one that was actually hung out with them for a while, and it actually looked after some of their stuff because he had a taste for certain foods and drinks. He liked fancy cheese and wine, so the elf had some fancy wine that he was able to bribe the mimic with. But yeah, the dungeon generation system can generate some pretty weird stuff. But those are memorable, right? I mean, you can remember it how many years later, and it's still really fun and cool.
Hey, I got a question,
Go ahead.
which
Yeah.
is, given how rich and interesting this world of Dungeon Dwellers is likely to be, are there any planned novelizations?
Man, fiction writing would be fun, and it probably pays better.
I mean, if you want to
you
sell
know-
the game, one way is to write books set in that game's world.
Others have expressed interest, and the one thing that I caution myself against, because I've already been told by Ron that I have kind of a flair for novels, you know. So here's the thing: I prefer writing for games, so I would be very cautious about Gord the Roguing Dungeon Dwellers, because I don't want to unduly saddle the characters in the books with game stuff, but I don't want the stuff to be written like Forgotten Realms books, which completely ignores the game stuff. So striking the balance between fidelity to the game, but yet still rich enough to be worth novelization, that sounds like a really challenging thing to do. So
Look at it this, Wolf. Look at it this way.
step one, let's get the book.
Robert
let's get the
Asprin.
RPG first.
Yeah, Robert Asprin single-handedly saved Thieves' World by writing those novels.
Well, there's a lot of people who contributed to those books, but I don't know, man. I mean, I'm no Robert Asprin. I'm no Robert E. Howard. I'm no Fritz Lieber. I'm no Michael Moorcock. And so, whenever you bring somebody in that's foreign to your product, you run the risk of losing control over it. But do I need that control? That's a good question. I don't know. But the thing is you also run into the problem with Forgotten Realms, where you have people. Don't get me wrong. I love Forgotten Realms. I grew up with it, and Ed Greenwood Spellfire is probably one of the greatest fantasy books I've ever read, outside of like Moorcock and Tolkien and Robert E. Howard. And it was AD&D. It was 100% AD&D. It felt like AD&D. But when I read a lot of Forgotten Realms novels, they have to create like new monsters to fit within like the narrative structure. They can't. They don't pick any. They don't use anything really in the Forgotten Realms. It's like the movie, like the D&D movie. Yeah, sort of took place in the realms, but you say it's Neverwinter, but I'd be real careful about it. I'm all for it, whatever it takes to produce to further our enterprise. But let's get our game stuff in print first, and then I'll worry about Foundry, Roll20, novelizations, and board games, patent play sets. We're close to the end at this point, and
Yeah.
I'm looking for something else.
Just don't let Hasbro buy you out.
I have no control over it. I have none. I'm a little worker ant. I know hard labor and a little bit of nectar. That's all I know.
Oh, Wolf, I'm just going to give you one more idea. Just
won't
put it
do
on
it.
the back burner and put it in your head. Okay. 2 words. Color forms.
Dude, my Space 1999 color form set is still one of my favorite toys from my childhood. Color forms are awesome, man. I love those. They're still available, like in Europe and stuff. You can still find them.
Awesome.
Oh, that buzzing
All
sound! I don't know if you guys hear that buzzing sound, but that's my chameleon getting blasted with water from across the room. I don't know if you guys
All
can
right.
hear it or not, but
So we're already at the end, but if it's okay with you, we can go a little bit over here to go into our question of the day. So
I'm
we'll have
available to you.
our question of the podcast, and this is for everybody. So here you go. RPG specific. What's the funniest spell you'd cast if you had it in real life? What's the funniest spell you would cast if you had it in real life? And I'll let Reaper Wolf answer this question. He's had a little time to actually think about this. So take it away.
The name of my spell is Delicious Fricassee. The material component is 11 herbs and spices, and it will allow me to instantly transform a quantity of meat from a creature into a delicious fall off the bone meal.
That's a well thought out answer. That's probably the best thought out answer we've ever had for a question of the day. Well, obviously you're a writer of this stuff, so yes. So awesome. That's great.
The minute you told me you were going to do this, I started thinking about it, and I wrote some details down.
All right. We're gonna go through the rest of the council to answer this question. Let's see who wants to go next. James, you have an idea for this one?
I was thinking of something called Pass the Blame. It would allow you to basically fart whenever, wherever you want, and it would automatically basically make somebody else look like the purveyor of said fart.
That's the blame.
Nice.
All right. Excellent. Oh, love it. I love these questions. They always bring out such colorful answers. Painterly Git, how about you?
Well, my favorite funny spell is Mike Dropper's Sickening Song. It's a 2nd level bard spell, and what it does, it's a saber suck, friend or foe, 30-foot radius, and the bard sings a terrible song that if you fail your saving throw, it makes you defecate in your pantaloons. And if you save the saving throw, you feel a little bit ashamed that you like the song. And at the table, there was even a song that went along with it. And it was, boom, 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 you'll have a poo typhoon. Your gut begins to quiver, and you'll shit out a river. Boom, 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 you need it pretty soon. What was it? Hurry, you gotta get there, your armor's out of room.
Wow.
You officially have my permission to play a bard in one of my games.
Thank you.
There you go. Git can be the bard. There you go. All right. Before we get to the next couple people, we got at least one here in chat. Dig Batty says mine would be Shits and Giggles, a wild magic spell. Who knows what you will get? Who knows what you will get? Will you be uncomfortable bowel movements, or will you get high? No one knows. Shits and Giggles.
That one would be
sounds like being boozled.
That's like a Wand of Wonder spell that would imagine pooping out like D10 gemstones. Boop, 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 boop.
Wow. All right, Quandom, you got any ideas?
Yes. Squeaky clown shoes. You cast it, and their feet become elongated, and basically they run at half speed, and you can hear them anywhere they're running.
Genius. You have me at clown magic.
Clown magic. Oh yeah, that's a
Clown magic. Genius. Genius.
All right, let's see who's next. Blades, you have any ideas?
I do. It's kind of silly, but it would be something like laughing gas, where the person starts laughing uncontrollably, and they drop their weapon and forget that they're going to attack me because they can't stop laughing, and then I either come in for the kill or I run away.
Oh, very, very creative.
You
I like-
gotta rename that spell and call it "I'll be here all week."
I like that.
I think
That's
that
good
is
one.
a spell. Tasha's hideous laughter.
Yeah, but hers would have like a gestural component where it'd be pull my finger.
Awesome. All right, Black Skull, you're next. I'm afraid of this one.
What are you afraid of? I have one that's kind of a little more personal, and it's more in the technomancy spell casting. I call it Death by Radio. What you do is you cast this spell at an offending vehicle who's playing their radio or their tape player or whatever, DVD, with that bumping noise that threatens the whole neighborhood and rattles windows. And it's the same nonal noise that you can't stand. You pass it as it goes by, you cast the spell as it goes by, and it transforms your entire stereo system into one speaker mono AM radio.
Nice.
An AM radio. Wow.
That's totally a GURPS. That's totally a GURPS technomancy spell. That's brilliant.
Oh, absolutely. Me and
Awesome.
Steve Jackson used to talk about some of that stuff.
Oh God, that's awesome, man.
That
So
went
cool.
in an opposite direction than I expected. I thought that their speaker system would just generate a resonant frequency that shook their car apart.
That's
Well, yes, but then that means I'd have to borrow some of James's thing, and they'd have to crap their pants at a certain resonant frequency.
A couple more from the chat here. We got Arta Michael says 500 frogs. That's very old. That's very Old Testament. It's very Old
That's
Testament
very
spell there.
biblical. Very nice. Yeah, it goes nicely with like the insect swarm spell.
Gray Mouser says, I cast protection from bards at the darkness. And Michael Paints Minis Lootmancer. Only mimics can have the spell list. It's all about being able to create loot golems from treasure items. Let's see. 10 plagues. 10
Treasure
plagues.
golem.
Yeah, there you go. So I think everybody's gone except for me. Mine is autocorrect reality. Anything anybody says, it autocorrects to something really hilarious. That's what I want. So when my boss is talking to me about some really serious thing, it just becomes a bunch of funny crap. That's what I want.
Nice.
Autocorrect reality.
Pure chaos, man.
Yes.
Oh,
Here.
and I'm going to speak for a friend of mine who is no longer with us. He was in my gaming group. We actually role played this out, and it took a couple months for him to develop. But he did have a wizard spell that what happens is whenever he had scrolls and he didn't want anybody else to transform them or take them or steal them and read them and use the magic like an old D&D, he would cast this spell on it. It was called Transformation because we didn't come up with anything better. But what it did is let's say Wolf stole the guy's scroll, and he went to open it up to read it. If it had transformation on it, it wouldn't actually have the runes or the words, the magic words, or whatever it was for the actual spell. All it was just really filthy language, profanity, and really disgusting images that would affect the player. And then that was it.
It's like a vulgar version of like when they tried to read when Snape tried to read or force Harry to read the spell.
Oh yes,
They tell Snape to mind his own beeswax.
yeah. We had a player one
Nice.
time who had actually typed the spell scroll from him And when he opened it up, I, as the DM, I wrote some stuff down and made him read out loud. He was so embarrassed because I wrote the filthiest stuff I could find in my brain to put on the scroll. And I said, if you want the spell to work, you've got to read the dialogue. And he gave up and actually publicly handed the spell back to him.
I capitulate. Please let me off the hook.
Arda Michael said my spell, or no, Arda Michael said my spell should have been called Well Actually.
Oh.
Oh man, I'd love to have that. Anyway, let's see. So we're over our time, but I do want to talk about one more thing briefly. ReaperCon next week from Wednesday already. What?
Yeah, like 10 days away.
Yeah, 10 days away from ReaperCon. What can people expect from Dungeon Dwellers at ReaperCon?
It is an amazing event. It is for the fans, by Reaper. Paint miniatures, participate in classes by noted sculptors and famed miniature painters. There are tons of games. We have a massively thick game schedule. I'm running 28 hours in just like 4 days, basically 3 days. I have a bunch of other very talented game masters that are running Dungeon Dwellers events. Our stuff is all free. Most of the RPG stuff is free. We have a dealer's hall, which is just getting bigger every year. There's award ceremonies. It's a legit convention. It started off as just a bunch of fans getting together and having barbecue at the old warehouse. Well, 14 years later, it's this massive to-do in Texas. It's basically one of the nicest conventions I've ever been to. I've been to Origins, wonderful. I've been to Gen Con, fantastic. But you know what? Nothing compares to ReaperCon. It's just welcoming. It's full of the nicest gamers you'll ever play with. And you get to hang out with some really nerdy people. Awesome.
Right, including myself. Black Skull will also be there. We're both attending our very first ReaperCon. So it's going to be great. Looking forward to it greatly. Looking forward to meeting you as well as the rest of the Reaper staff in person. It's been I've met a couple people at Adepticon, but it's going to be great to be kind of engulfed in everything that goes on at ReaperCon. So really looking. Alrighty.
And all hail the Waffle House.
The Waffle House.
Man, now I want waffles. What are you doing to me?
My wife and I are using part of the trip as a 20th anniversary present to ourselves and vacation. And one of the things on our bucket list is go to the Waffle House.
Excellent.
Is there one across the street from ReaperCon? Is that the idea? Or is that where
it's
everybody
very close?
goes?
It's near our hotel near University of North Texas.
It's down the road a little bit, but there is one. There's several.
Yep.
So,
well, I think the great thing about the Waffle House is that it's open 24/7. So if you finish your gaming session at 3 a.m. and you got a hankering for waffles, there's some place you can go.
Because why wouldn't you?
Exactly. So it's unlike Adepticon.
Salad with no croutons, please.
Blades went to her first Waffle House last year. I've actually never been to a Waffle House. We have George Webb around here, which is 24 hours. So that's
yeah.
That's.
I was 6 years old the last time I went to a Waffle House.
I've never been, but then again, I've also been to ReaperCon 14 years, and I've never been to Buc-ee's. So
Buc-ee's.
We're going to Buc-ee's too.
I've never been to a Buc-ee's, man.
We're going to go to Buc-ee's.
My wife has demanded a T-shirt. And I'm like, I told Ron that this year we have to get me to a Buc-ee's. I'm actually flying out later on Monday, specifically so he and I can go to a Buc-ee's.
All right. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here, Joseph. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and be part of our humble little council of miniature painters here. It was a pleasure learning more about Dungeon Dwellers and all the work that's going into it. Really looking forward to it coming out in hardcover, hopefully soon. And yeah, I'm looking forward to playing it at ReaperCon. So I've gotten a chance to look through the books. It's like there's so much material in there. I feel like I'm nowhere near prepared. So hopefully it's easy to learn for newcomers. So that's kind of my the first thing I notice about a game, because I have a hard time learning games sometimes, and it's like how easy is it for a newcomer to join in. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and maybe doing some online sessions with some of my viewers here and in the future. And I know you talked about maybe doing something like that too. So with us. So
yep.
That would be a lot of fun. Vanessa Miniatures, how you doing tonight? So anyway, wow, that's going to be a wrap for our Council of Miniature Painters. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I know I certainly did, and I think we had some really good questions, comments, and we learned a lot about Dungeon Dwellers. So we're gonna let you get, you're gonna you're diving right into it tonight to finish one of the books, and so we're not gonna keep you much longer, so you can get that book done so we can get it released, right? So
you betcha, man.
Yeah.
So many calculations, so many magic items, man.
Yes, get that calculator out. So alrighty, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us for the Council of Miniature Painters. Joseph, again, thank you. And to the rest of our esteemed council, I appreciate everybody being here. We had James Wapple, Painterly Git, Black Skull, Quantum Reveries, Blades. Thank you all so much for being here. And I hope you all guys all have a great night. This will be posted up on YouTube soon. And anybody coming to ReaperCon, say hi to Joseph, say hi to me, say hi to Black Skull, say hi to everybody, and just get involved in this such a great community. And yeah, so looking forward to it. So again, thank you everyone for coming, and we'll see you next time.